Pacify Part 1 Chapter 3 Dreamless Sleep. For 4 days, Severus was left blissfully alone. He found, however, that he was not much comforted by that. Potter had gotten under his skin all right, and in the evenings he found himself waiting, with some mortifying mixture of fear and eagerness, for Potter to come to him. He avoided meals as much as possible, not wanting to be seen in the same room as the boy. Who knew what Potter might reveal through body language alone? He didn't so much as make eye contact with Potter during the day, and at night he didn't hear his footsteps in the silent house. The sleeping draught he'd given the boy was a strong one, but one bottle wouldn't last forever. So, in the meantime, Severus occupied himself with brewing extra doses. Extra strong ones at that. Some of those batches he used himself to get through the night without dreaming. On the 5th day, it was near 2 in the morning when Severus heard a quiet tapping at his door. "Come," he said, not moving from where he was reclined on his bed, scrolls piled haphazardly on the bedside table. The door creaked open, and there was Potter, tousle-headed and barefoot as usual. His face was drawn, with dark, bruised-looking smudges under his eyes. Severus sat up against the headboard. "How can I help you, Potter?" he asked. Harry shifted from foot to foot and picked at his nightshirt. He held out the empty bottle. "Can't sleep," he said, with a small, sheepish grin. "Ask nicely," Severus replied, and Potter flushed, a rather fetching rose colour that crept up from his throat and into his cheeks. "Can you please drug me some more, sir?" he said, rolling his eyes to the ceiling. Severus flicked his fingertips, and a fresh bottle flew to his hand. "Dreamless sleep," he said, "one of the true luxuries of life." He held it out, and Harry stepped cautiously toward the bed, as if he hadn't barged in only a few days before. "Go on, Potter," Severus said, twitching the bottle. Harry looked around the room, and then down at the floor. Severus tipped his head back against the headboard and sighed. "Is there something else?" Harry scraped his teeth over his lip, hugged his elbows. Would it be all right if I stayed in here for a while?" "Absolutely not." Severus looked back down at the scroll in his hands and relaxed his grip. He'd been crushing it. "I won't do anything obnoxious. Promise." "What sort of fool do you take me for?" Just until I fall asleep." "No." Potter shrugged his shoulders and turned towards the door, looking dejected. Severus was in turmoil. At the last moment, he wavered. "Don't do it." "Potter, wait," he blurted. "Damn." Harry stopped in the doorway and turned to look at him. Take the potion, here where I can see you. When you fall asleep, I'll levitate you into your bed." He paused. "You look awful." Harry smiled at him. "All right," he said. He came over to the bed and took the bottle from Severus's hand. The bruise on his face was gone. His bottom lip was healed and smooth, perfect again, almost as if none of it had happened. "All of it," Severus said. Harry looked for a moment as though he might protest, but instead he just uncorked the bottle and drank, grimacing as he finished it. Severus averted his eyes as he swallowed, pretending to return to his now rather abused parchment. But then, to his abject horror, Harry crawled over him to the other side of the bed. "Excuse me," he said, words already starting to slur at the edges, and plopped down onto his back. "Merlin Snipe, what'd she give me?" "Potter," Severus started, but cut himself off as Harry's eyelids drooped. The whole bottle really was rather too much, he supposed, and after mere seconds, Harry's head rolled to rest against his shoulder. Severus let him sleep there for longer than he intended. He managed to drop the Gryffindor into his bed around dawn, and, creeping through the quiet halls, he thought about getting caught with an unconscious Potter on his hands. It wasn't too terrible a transgression, really, even if they found out he'd given the boy a sleeping potion. Anyone with eyes could see that Harry Potter needed to sleep. He thought about getting caught with Potter's hands down his pants. Now that would be one for the record books. Harry came back the next night, tap, tap, tapping at Severus's door long after the house was silent with sleep. That time, Severus put his scroll down before bidding him enter. "Potter," he said, inclining his head. The boy looked a little better for his night's sleep, a little more alive around the eyes. "Did you sleep well?" "Yeah, right up until Ron started trying to get me up for breakfast. He freaked out when he couldn't wake me." Oh. It had been too much, he thought. "Yeah, he started screaming, 'Oi, Harry's in a coma! Come help! Harry's in a coma!' I had to drag myself out of bed and pretend to be fine for all of breakfast. Almost did me in." "Perhaps not the whole bottle tonight, then," Severus said, reaching into his bedside table. "Yeah, or I could be left the fuck alone for 2 bleeding seconds." "Language, Potter. You would have let me sleep." Harry sat down heavily on the edge of the bed, and Severus fought the urge to scoot away from him. "I hate the way they look at me," he said, picking at his hands. "All concerned." Of course they were concerned. Potter was going off the deep end, and it was bloody obvious. Severus's fingers itched to touch him, so he ran them over the coverlet instead. "Am I not concerned?" he asked, his voice pitched low. Potter looked up from his hands. "Are you? I thought you just wanted me out of your hair." "I have evidently failed at that endeavour, wouldn't you say?" Severus held out the bottle of Dreamless sleep. "Perhaps you should take half this time." it's still a large dose. Harry took the bottle and looked at it critically. "Can you do me a favour?" he asked. Severus closed his eyes and rested his head back against the headboard. "I am at your service, Potter." Harry hesitated, turning the bottle over and over in his hands. "Can you?" He swallowed. "Can you be angry at me again?" Severus opened his eyes, looked at the ceiling. He felt warmth pooling low in his belly at the implication. He had done extremely ill-advised things while he had been angry. He would not get angry again. "I am not angry at you," he said. "Why not? Drink it, Potter." What if I called you a coward?" Harry was looking at the floor. "What if I said Sirius was a better man than you'll ever be?" Severus took a deep and steadying breath. He could almost hear the unspoken plea. "Hurt me. Hurt me. Hurt me. I will not lose my temper again," he said. A tear fell from Potter's downturned face and onto the floor. There was a long silence, and then, so quietly as almost to be missed, Potter whispered, "Please." Severus would take the Cruciatus over this any day. This torture. He sat forward and swung his legs over the edge of the bed to sit beside Potter's slight, slumped frame. "You need to take your dreamless sleep," he said, and plucked it from Harry's loose fingers, uncorked it, and held it out. Potter just looked up at him, his eyes shimmering with unshed tears, pupils blown and huge in the low light. They searched his face for a moment, and then Potter closed his eyes and opened his mouth. "Potter, don't," Severus hissed. "Don't do that." Harry just tilted his chin up, his eyelashes a dark smudge on his pale skin. Severus could feel his heartbeat thundering in his ears. What kind of mad behaviour? What insanity? Potter's tongue darted out to moisten his bottom lip. Severus just had to get him to sleep. If he would just sleep, everything would be all right. He could just forget about all this in the morning. Potter would be embarrassed. They could carry on like before. Severus swallowed hard. "Fine. Let the brat have it his way. Fine." He brought the rim of the bottle up to Harry's lips, and, cupping his other hand behind the boy's neck, supported his head as he tipped it further back. There was a hallucinatory quality to the moment as he dipped the bottle forward, pouring the potion into Potter's open mouth. feeling him obediently swallow all he was given. And it was with an almost physical pain that Severus realized viscerally how beautiful he was. In his grief, his suffering, like a siren leading a ship into the rocks. Severus was not a perfect man. He was weak. On Potter's lips, he tasted the lavender and chamomile that he'd added to the potion to make it more palatable. The bottle dropped onto the floor, spilling forgotten, as his hand went to the back of Potter's head. Potter's mouth, soft, satin, opened easily to Severus with a low, indistinct moan, and the boy's hands came up to rest on Severus's chest. He felt Potter's fingertips pressing against him, seeking purchase in the fabric of his clothes. Slowly, they began to relax, his arms dropping lifelessly back into his lap. Severus broke the kiss, pressing his forehead against the famous lightning scar. Harry managed, eyelashes fluttering weakly. You had to wait until after I took it. He was fading fast, dropping into the profound torpor that was signature to the draft of dreamless sleep. "I'm sorry," Severus said. But Potter was gone, limp in his arms. Severus lay him down gently on the bedclothes and stood. Numbly, he walked into his adjoining bathroom and splashed cold water onto his face. Severus Snape didn't really believe in hell. But if the Muggles were right, and there was such a place, he was surely going there. He might even be there already. Harry woke up easily the next morning. No one shouted at him or about him. Breakfast was an uneventful affair of toast and eggs. Snape was not there, as usual, and Harry had to fight the urge to look up at the ceiling, wondering what the man was up to, whether he needed any help, and whether or not anyone would notice if he paid the potions master a visit during the day. He decided they would notice. That night, Harry could only make himself wait until 11:30, just after Ron had finally stopped talking to him and dropped off to sleep. He crept as silently as possible on socked feet through the house to Snape's door, knowing that someone could very easily still be awake. But he was practiced at lurking, having perfected the art during his nighttime wanderings at school, though he didn't bother with his invisibility cloak at number 12. No curfew, really. Not like at Hogwarts. Hogwarts. The summer was almost over, and maybe Snape would let him come visit in the dungeons once school started. But he doubted it. Probably Snape would be fired immediately if anyone knew what he'd done already. Probably Snape would be fired even if he'd only been giving Harry sleeping potions without the oversight of a healer. Maybe Harry would be expelled too. That would be a relief. Then he could focus all his energy on not dying instead of classwork and exams. He chuckled a little to himself. Hermione would be horrified. Sometimes he wanted to shout at her that there was a war on if she hadn't noticed. Schoolwork obviously had to come second. What were they going to do? Read your Newt scores at your funeral? Outside of Snape's door, there was a bottle of Dreamless sleep with a note. Take half. SS. Harry almost snorted and walked right in. Severus hadn't really thought it would work, but he hadn't expected Potter to come to him so early. He mustn't have even tried to sleep on his own. "You didn't lock the door," Potter said. "Would it have mattered?" Severus asked in reply, his eyes fixed, unseeing, on the volume in his hands. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Potter flash him a toothy grin. "No." He held up the bottle. "I don't come just for this, you know." Severus peered at him over the edge of his book, ignoring the faint thrill of excitement that sizzled down his spine at the words. Severus knew full well why he came. Potter continued, coming further into the room. "The note is a nice touch, though. Did you think I wouldn't remember?" He put the potion and the scrap of paper down on the bedside table. Severus exhaled slowly and deliberately through his nose. "I had hoped," he said. "Retroactive amnesia is not unheard of at the doses you've been taking." Harry plucked the book out of his hands and dropped it. "What?" and climbed right into his lap. Severus froze solid. "Potter, no!" "Shh!" The boy shushed him, bracing his hands on either sides of Severus's head to whisper. "I don't think everyone is asleep." "Then get off me, Potter!" Severus hissed back, hands coming up to grip Harry's hips, thinking to dislodge him. "You can't just—" "Ward the door," Potter interrupted. "What? No!" "Ward the door," he said again, and was suddenly kissing him. Severus's brain was not working. If it had been, he would have foreseen that and gotten off the bed when Potter walked in. It was his own bloody fault, and now Potter was straddling him in his bed in the middle of the night, and God help him, but he was filled with such a strong desire to possess that he could hardly breathe. He had to get control of the situation. Somehow. He fisted a hand in the front of Harry's shirt and pushed hard, breaking the kiss with enough force to knock the air out of the Gryffindor's lungs. "Stop!" he barked. Harry's hands went to his wrist. "I would really ward the door if you're going to shout at me," he gasped, and squeezed Severus with his legs. Severus clenched his teeth, pressing himself down into the mattress to stave off an unbearable urge to press up. He tightened his other hand on Potter's hip, digging his fingers in to still him. "I don't have a free hand for that," he hissed. "Listen to me, Potter. I don't know exactly when you stopped being afraid of me, but it is foolish beyond measure to push me like this. Get off of me, return to your room, take your potion, and sleep." Harry made no move to obey. "If you want me to be afraid, you should do something frightening," he said, shifting his hips forward until he was pressing obscenely against Severus's abdomen. Severus's tenuous hold on his personal morality stretched thin, fraying at the edges under the unbearable strain. Letting go of the front of Potter's shirt, he grabbed his throat and squeezed. "I told you, Potter," he whispered. You haven't the slightest idea what I am capable of. If you refuse to take your medicine, I will put you out myself, you mad beast." His hand fit perfectly around Harry's neck, leaving his fingers and thumb to press just so against the branches of his carotid artery. He felt Potter's throat work against his palm, and, unable to make a single sound, Potter rocked his hips forward again with more urgency. Merlin's beard. He liked it. Severus could practically feel the blood leave his brain. He let go at once, and Harry slumped against him, open mouth gasping, dazed, breath hot against his neck. And Severus could feel very distinctly how hard Potter was, almost twitching with arousal, pressed against his belly. "Potter," he managed, desperately fighting to keep himself still, mouth almost in the boy's hair. "I can't have you here. You need to leave. Immediately. Take the potion and return to your quarters." His hand slid around to Harry's lower back, feeling him quiver, his muscles and nerves coiled tight and ready to burst. "You can't send me out like this." Potter panted slowly, fingers digging hard into Severus's shoulders. "You can't." Severus reached out blindly toward the bedside table, eyes squeezed shut, fumbling at the bottle. "You'll do as you're told," he said, managing to pop the cork with his free hand, and pulled Potter's head back with the other. "Drink it." Harry scraped his teeth over his bottom lip. Can't we? "No." He gripped Potter's jaw. "Open." He felt Potter's cock jump where it was pressed against him. "You're a sadist," Harry gasped, and opened his mouth. "Isn't that why you come to me?" Severus replied, as Potter swallowed the potion that was poured into his mouth. "Isn't that what you need?" Potter's breath seized in his throat, and he turned his lips into Severus's palm. Fear and lust boiled up in his core at the soft touch, the hairs on his arms standing on end. Oh, the things he could do to this boy. "You'll destroy us both," he said. "Please," Harry murmured, the word indistinct as, against his will, his body began to relax. "You can't just keep drugging me." "You'll find that I can." Potter didn't even hear him. Severus caught him as he sagged, easing him to the side to rest against the pillows. He couldn't risk levitating him back into bed just yet, not before midnight at least, so he got up, warded the door, and made his way stiffly into the bathroom. Then he stripped off his clothes and got into the shower. Thrusting into his fist, he tried to think of anything else, but Potter climbing brazenly into his lap, Potter moaning in his mouth, Potter gasping for air, Potter's body pressing against him, of Potter's mouth forming the words, "I want you to tear me apart." After he was done, he dried his hair and dressed himself, and returned Potter's sleeping body to his assigned bed. He drank the other half of the potion and laid down staring at the ceiling until the dreamless sleep dragged his eyelids closed. The next night, Severus hid. Feeling like an idiot, he left a new bottle of dreamless sleep lying on the center of his bed and crept up into the attic. It had never been fully cleared of detritus, and no one went there, and he scourgified a corner of the dirty floor and sat down against the wall. Eventually, Potter would give up, and he could go back down to his bedroom. Simply avoiding the situation was no solution, of course, but he was just too tired to try to think of something better. He had to talk to Dumbledore. That would be first. He'd been wrong to try to keep this a secret. Clearly, he couldn't tell the old man everything, but maybe he could let slip just enough to get Potter some proper help. Treatment, if it was required. Healer-certified sleeping potions. The draughts Severus brewed were far too strong to be regulation, and if Poppy were put in charge, Potter might have a better chance at getting out of this undamaged. Because, as sure as Severus had ambitions to protect the boy, he would hurt him. That was what always happened. Severus had never learned to be careful or kind. Had never learned to preserve anything good. And surely it was too late to learn now. Potter would shatter in his hands like a Christmas bauble. He'd break open. Unbidden, an image flashed into his mind, unforgivably clear. Potter, trembling and twisting under his hands, and Severus, holding him down, denying him, making him plead and beg. To his shame, the little voice in his head telling him to keep his hands off was getting smaller every day. But it wasn't quite gone, and in its wake was left an agonizing self-hatred, which, of course, he was quite used to. Despite his intentions to act sentinel, Severus dozed off in the pre-dawn, awakening some hours later with his face on the floor and his neck stiff and painful. Far below, he could just hear the clattering of dishes as the mob started or finished breakfast. If he left quickly, he might be able to get back into his bedroom without anyone seeing him. He decided to try for it, and all was well until he rounded the final corner and walked right into Potter's back. Of course. Obviously, Potter would be loitering outside his door. Why not? "Potter!" Severus hissed, as the boy stumbled forward, catching himself on the wall. "What in Merlin's name are you doing here?" Harry straightened and turned to look him over. "You're kind of dusty," he said, and brushed at the back of his shirt where Severus had knocked into him. "I thought maybe you'd escaped into the outside world." He stepped forward, reaching out towards Severus's hair. "You've got a—" Severus jerked back. "Cobweb," Harry finished. He dropped his hand. "I guess you weren't outside then." "None of your business, Potter." Severus felt his hair pulling free a clump of spider silk and dust. It stuck to his fingers, and he flicked it free with some effort, looking back up just in time to see Potter's mouth curl into an uncharitable grin. "Were you hiding from me?" he asked. Severus crossed his arms. "Certainly not." "Yeah, all right. Sure." Harry took a step towards him. Severus held up one finger in a gesture of warding. "Ah, Potter, no. Do not come any closer to me." He paused. "It's broad daylight, for Merlin's sake." Harry tilted his head to the side, and Severus felt abruptly exposed. He'd said that wrong. "Oh, I see," Harry answered, before Severus could clarify himself. "Tonight, then." He reached out and plucked another cobweb from the front of Severus's robes. "See you," he said, and turned to descend the stairs. Severus almost called out to him, almost shouted after him that was not what he'd meant, that Potter couldn't come to see him every night, any night, that it was too dangerous for both of them. Maybe even that Severus didn't want him to come, didn't want him. But that would be too obviously a lie. Potter would probably just laugh and come anyway. Severus had lost control so thoroughly it was almost like he'd done it on purpose. His subconscious acting out on his behalf to punish him for unpious thoughts. He had to fix it. Had to figure out how to set some limits. Any limits.